If you've been around my channel at all in the past month or two, then you know that I've been obsessed with K-pop demon hunters. So much so that I completely forgot about another huge show from South Korea that aired in the same month. The highly anticipated final season of one of the biggest, most influential TV shows of the last decade, Squid Game. Now, I was one of the people who always thought that Squid Game didn't need a sequel. Season 1 had a perfectly great story that had a solid conclusion. So when Season 2 came out earlier this year, I was skeptical. To me, it felt like another cash grab, with Netflix continually milking one of their most popular IPs. In other words, I basically had zero expectations coming into it. But, to my surprise, Season 2 was actually a banger. It was pretty fucking good, like, I am not even capping.
Bad you know, Chel, I'm a legend, Thanos. I like you.
And I was so surprised at how well they were able to retell a story with the same premise, but innovated to the point that it constantly subverted expectations and somehow made the show more entertaining than I ever expected. Except, there was one issue. It ended on a cliffhanger. And honestly, I should have left it at that because Season 3 is a big pile of dog shit. My name is Andre, and let's talk about why Squid Game Season 3 is a waste of time. Before I start yapping, just want to warn you that I'll be spoiling all of Season 3 right about now, so please make sure you're done watching the entire series before you continue watching this video. And due to copyright reasons, I obviously can't show too much of the TV show on YouTube, so I hope you enjoy the Fall Guys gameplay in the background. Now, I do want to go over some of the few good things that Season 3 does well before I start talking a lot of shit. We continue right where we left off from Season 2, and there are direct consequences from the frontman's betrayal that puts all of our characters in an immensely dire, more hopeless state than ever before. I actually think that the best death game in the entire sequel was hide and seek. It had the perfect mix of suspense and intensity, and it perfectly showcased the brutality of Squid Game and how far people will go when they're pushed into a corner. And by the way, shout out to Hyunju for being an absolute goat. She had a heart of gold that, just like Ali Abdul's character from Season 1, was just too pure for this cruel world, and her death by the hands of Myung-gi really cemented the growing rift between him and Jun-ho. Their relationship was already fragile, but Hyunju's death shattered it entirely, which you'd think would play a pivotal role in setting up the arc for both characters, but in actuality, it amounted to absolutely nothing.
What it is good for? Absolutely nothing!
I also thought that the heart-wrenching scene between the mother and son was emotionally resonant and befit their characters in the way they acted, with the mother later on taking her own life, unable to bear the guilt of killing her own son, even if it was for the right reason. I'm also lukewarm but leaning towards liking Kang No-ul's little plotline. On one hand, I thought her character was cool and had a lot of badass moments, but also, her contribution to the main plot was minimal at best. I wish she had more impact on the overarching narrative, but in the end, she kinda just did her own thing, staying isolated from the rest of the cast. And that's about it, because if I'm being real, it's all downhill from here. Now, there are a lot of reasons why I think Season 3 sucks, and while I don't have time to talk about every single one, I want to focus on my two main criticisms: abysmal pacing and wasted characters. The pacing in Season 3 was actually so bad that so many moments throughout the season felt overly drawn out, like it's playing back in 0.5 speed, and it doesn't really do anything in terms of creating tension or suspense. And there are so many scenes that honestly served no purpose in the overarching plot of the show, and part of me wonders if they just needed to pad the shit out of Season 3 with filler to justify separating this whole sequel into 2 seasons. For example, Detective Jun-ho's storyline was already pretty bad in Season 2, but it's actually even worse in Season 3. It's such a worthless plotline with a laughably bad, tonally inconsistent ending that I genuinely think the sequel would have been better off without it. To explain why Jun-ho's storyline is so deeply unsatisfying, Brandon Sanderson, one of my favorite authors of all time, talks about the idea of character proactivity.
You like the story, you want the story to happen. You get frustrated by the characters who are obstacles to the story happening. You get annoyed when someone slows and stalls what you think should be the progress of the story.
In other words, Jun-ho, who was this highly capable and proactive character in Season 1, is rendered into this incompetent husk of a man, spending every single episode lost at sea like he's fucking Walmart Odysseus or some shit. When he eventually makes it on the island, he barely gets 30 minutes on it because of course the island has a self-destruct sequence. To make it worse, when he finally sees the front man, his brother, all he does at the end is this.
Tell me why!
I gave this storyline a bit of a pass in Season 2 because it felt like it was building up to an intensely climactic confrontation. But this is what we got? Like, what the actual was the point of that? Even the ending betrays the very essence of Jun-ho's character and his internal motivations. When the island blows up and all the bad guys, including the frontman, escapes, he literally just gives up on finding his brother, on law enforcement, on exposing and ending the Squid Game. Honestly, it would have been better off if the frontman just killed Jun-ho in Season 1 because that would have been more respectful and stayed true to his character compared to what they did to him at the end of the season. Likewise, another clear example of horrendous pacing is how much screen time the season devotes to the VIPs, and it feels like artificial padding for runtime. Now, I don't hate the concept of the VIPs, these opulent, sadistic assholes existing in the context of the story. But it would have been a lot better if they were just used seldomly, because the more they opened their mouths, the more I wanted to vomit.
This might turn 222 into some kind of Marvel superhero.
Like Wonder Woman?
That's actually a DC superhero, but anyway.
Are you serious?
Seems reasonable to me.
This is
I would give it a
torture.
try.
My god, the acting, the writing, everything about the VIPs makes me want to blow my brains out. And I don't want to hear these VIP apologists saying, actually, it's intentionally bad. Shut up. Sorry, just thinking about these scenes is getting me heated. I apologize. But regardless of intent, the VIPs are such a detriment to the world building of Squid Game, at least in the way that they're portrayed. They're so cartoonishly evil to the point that I can't even take them or the game seriously anymore. And honestly, they destroyed every sense of tension I felt in the games every time they made some stupid ass remark.
This is a bigger twist than the resurrection of Jesus.
No, don't like that.
Now, if terrible pacing was my only problem with Season 3, I honestly could have lived with that, and I still would have liked the rest of the show. Too bad it commits a sin that even I can't forgive. Let's talk about wasted character potential. By the end of the second episode, after the hide-and-seek game, basically all the characters we gave a modicum of a shit about in Season 2 are already eliminated. Answer this question for me real quick. What happens when we run out of characters to root for in a story before they can solve the conflict? Well, we lose interest. We won't care about the ending. And that's because there aren't any compelling characters left to drive the plot. And speaking of plot, let's dive deep into the idea of plot armor and how badly it was used in Season 3. In general, plot armor gets a bad rap because, when misused, it's often criticized to be immersion breaking, as main characters survive situations that they're realistically supposed to die in. However, in the case of a lot of our side characters, a total lack of plot armor can be immensely unsatisfying because we lose all of that emotional investment we put into our favorite characters when they die abruptly, with no proper send-off. In Squid Game, plot armor denotes the order of the characters dying, and that drastically affects the pacing of the story as well as the character's journey to resolve the conflict. Proper use of plot armor ensures that, as the story goes on, we continue to have characters that are interesting and we want to root for or against, no matter if it's for the right or wrong reasons. To be clear though, Season 3's lack of plot armor only applies to all of its side characters, and that's because Gi-hun and the baby took all of it. See, the final game is played with like 9 contestants left. The problem is, 5 of them are literal NPCs that we don't give a fuck about. Furthermore, there's no tension because we all knew that these unnamed randos were cooked no matter what. Even when the frontman literally rigged the game for them, as the audience, we all knew that there was no way that they were going to win because Gi-hun and the baby had maximum plot armor. To make things worse, having cannon fodder like these bots in what's supposed to be the climactic final game is such a waste. Imagine if characters like Hyunju, Daeho, Namgyu, or Junhee made it to the final round, and how much more interesting it would have made the dynamic given some kind of added third party. I'm not saying that they all should have lived until the final game, but one or two more of these characters surviving to that point would have been a better choice, in my opinion. Instead, we're left with just 3 real characters. First, there's Gi-hun, who's been our main character that we know won't die until the very last moment, when he inevitably sacrifices himself for the baby. And as much as I appreciate it being a solid conclusion to his character, with his selfless act as a way of atoning for all of his sins, this was such a boringly predictable result. Side note, I really hate how Gi-hun refused, conveniently forgot, whatever excuse we want to give him, to press the button in the final kerfuffle with Myung-gi because he had to sacrifice himself solely for plot reasons, apparently. Up to this point, his main motivation was to make sure the baby lived, no matter what. And that's why it makes me so mad he just didn't take the frontman's offer to kill the rest of the contestants, when he was given the option to win the games and secure the baby's well-being. Like, I get it, it was supposed to be this moment of clarity for Gi-hun that he refuses to be the monster like the frontman was. But logically, he was f***ing dead. If it wasn't for plot armor bullshit, with him just rolling nat 20s, being given a knife by the frontman, and Myung-gi's unforeseen betrayal, he'd be dead 100%. He should have had no chance. And the only reason he lived is because the rest of the dumbass contestants made one bad decision after another. This was such a Falcons level Super Bowl throw that also made me want to yeet myself off of the ledge like Lunchbox over there. And you know what that's called? Plot armor. Man, it was just so stupid. And speaking of, there's also Myung-gi, who has had an interesting and complex motivation throughout the sequel, making himself do awful shit in the name of protecting Junhee and the baby. But unfortunately, it just devolves into him going full feral on Gi-hun, ultimately leading to his death. What a waste of a cool character. In the end, there's no redemption arc, no serious talk about his motivations, about his lack of integrity and constant lying to himself. There was no reflection on the monster he'd become.
When does a man become a monster?
Last and most certainly least, there's Min-soo, who is the very definition of a nothing burger. The way they wrote Min-soo pissed me the fuck off. Instead of this character who, against all odds, could have done something great, could have had a character arc where he learns to be confident, to do the right thing, instead, he just turns into a drug addict. In other words, he transforms into the exact same people who bullied him, who he despised. That's literally it. He doesn't even steal the drugs from the other dude, he just accidentally came across it. He also happened to survive the last 2 games from sheer luck, tripping his balls off until he finally got pushed off by Myung-gi. At that point, I would have just rather they kill Min-soo earlier and have Namgyu make it to the final game, because at least he was a more compelling druggie with a more active personality that would have spiced up the dynamic of the game. He would have actually done something. To summarize, Season 3 wastes pretty much all of its previously great characters, whether it's due to its terrible ending or because they outright killed all of the interesting characters way too early, before they could add value to the overall narrative itself. Those are some of my complaints about Squid Game Season 3. The pacing sucks, the characters are disappointing, and this all feels like a giant waste of time. We don't even get a proper ending because, lo and behold, there's a spin-off in the works. Squid Game America. Ugh, whatever man, I'm so over it. Thank God I'm not in crippling debt, or Mr. Beast might kidnap me into the Squid Game after posting this video. Anyways, I rate Squid Game Season 3 a 4 out of 10, which is actually dog shit because I honestly rate Season 2 a 9 out of 10, with the original being an 8.5. Yeah, Season 3 is definitely watchable, I finished it, I guess, but I also kinda regret doing that. I'm really sad too because I have so many fond memories watching Season 1 of Squid Game during my college days. I'd get together with my housemates and we'd buy chicken wings, fries, and we would just pig out while enjoying some peak South Korean television. Trust me, I didn't make this video because I'm some Squid Game hater. But after watching this travesty, I just couldn't help but feel that I needed to put this out there. In conclusion, I'm just a huge fan who's incredibly disappointed.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Even more so after season 2 gave me false hope that this could have had a good ending. And speaking of endings, if you're still here, you made it to the end of the video. So if you want to see me review your favorite movies or TV shows, please feel free to comment your suggestions down below and make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this in the near future. As usual, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. What the f? My glizzy's stuck! What the f? What the fuck is it?
Oh, you beat each other off.
Oh shit.
Wait, what? He said that?
Oh, my bad. Not a man.
Ezekiel, you
Alright, now got the moves.
No!
Hey! Oh my gosh, you're so tight!
Oh, shit. Ay, Shiba! No!